You know what the real problem with humans is? They make absolutely no sense whatsoever. Trust me, I should know. I am Vex 9, Tactical Analyst for the Galactic Defense Coalition, and I have spent the last 3 rotations studying these bizarre creatures from Earth. My conclusion: they are completely, utterly, magnificently insane. Take this morning, for instance. Our long-range sensors detected what appeared to be a standard cargo vessel approaching the Kepler station. Nothing unusual there. Ships arrive daily carrying supplies, diplomatic messages, the occasional tourist foolish enough to venture this far into contested space. But this particular vessel? Oh, this one was different. Sir, my subordinate, Tech Lieutenant Core, practically vibrated with excitement as he reviewed the scanner data. The approaching ship, it is not what it appears to be. I sighed, my 4 eyes rolling in perfect synchronization. Core had a talent for stating the obvious with theatrical flair. Explain, Lieutenant. The vessel is transmitting Terran identification codes, but the hull composition suggests military-grade armor plating. Hidden weapon systems detected along the ventral surface. This is no cargo hauler, sir. This is a warship disguised as a freighter. Now that was interesting. The humans had been suspiciously quiet lately. Too quiet. Intelligence reports suggested they were planning something significant, but our spy networks had come up empty. Perhaps this mysterious ship held some answers. Hail the vessel, I commanded, settling into my command chair. Let us see what these humans are really up to. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the interior of what looked like a perfectly ordinary cargo ship bridge. A single human sat in the captain's chair, wearing nothing more than a simple blue jumpsuit. No armor, no visible weapons, no intimidating crew members flanking him. Just one lone human with sandy brown hair, and the most unsettling smile I had ever witnessed. "Greetings," the human said cheerfully. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the merchant vessel Wandering Star. We are carrying agricultural supplies bound for the Centauri colonies." Jake Morrison. The name meant nothing to our databases, which was odd. The Coalition kept detailed records on all known human military personnel, and this individual did not appear in any of them. Either he was a complete unknown, or the humans had developed new identity-masking technology. "Captain Morrison," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Your ship appears to be more than a simple cargo hauler. Our scans indicate military-grade modifications." The human's smile widened. Oh, how I detested that expression. Humans smiled when they were happy, when they were lying, when they were plotting something devious, or sometimes for no apparent reason at all. It was maddening. "Military-grade modifications?" Morrison laughed, and the sound sent uncomfortable ripples through my chitinous exoskeleton. "Well, space is dangerous these days. Pirates, raiders, the occasional diplomatic incident. A merchant needs to protect his investment, you understand?" "Of course," I said, though I understood nothing. "Perhaps you would not object to a standard inspection? For security purposes, naturally." "Naturally!" Morrison agreed with disturbing enthusiasm. "Feel free to board whenever you like. Though I should warn you, we did have a minor accident with our cargo hold pressurization system earlier today. Nothing serious, just a small leak. Probably best to keep the inspection brief." A pressurization leak? That was convenient, almost suspiciously convenient. I made a mental note to have our boarding party bring portable atmospheric processors. "Very well, Captain. Prepare to receive our inspection team." The transmission ended, and I turned to Core. "Assemble a full tactical squad. Something about this human does not feel right." Sir, he appeared to be completely unarmed and alone. Surely a standard security detail would suffice? I fixed Core with my sternest glare. Lieutenant, in my experience, humans are most dangerous when they appear to be harmless. Double the security detail. 20 minutes later, our boarding shuttle docked with the Wandering Star. Commander Zix, my most experienced boarding officer, led a team of 12 heavily armed security personnel onto the human vessel. Their mission was simple: conduct a thorough inspection and determine the ship's true purpose. That was the last time anyone heard from them. Commander Zix, report your status, I called over the communication system. Silence. Zix, respond immediately. Still nothing. I felt a familiar chill creeping up my spine. This was how humans operated. They lured you in with false displays of cooperation, then struck without warning. But how? Our sensors showed no signs of combat, no energy weapon discharges, no explosions. The boarding team had simply vanished. Sir, Core's voice cracked with barely controlled panic. I am detecting movement aboard the human vessel, but the life signs are strange. Strange how? The readings suggest our boarding party is still alive, but their biological signatures have become erratic, almost as if they are intoxicated. Intoxicated? That made no sense. Coalition personnel were equipped with full atmospheric filters and anti-toxin protocols. Unless Captain Morrison, I hailed the human ship again. The cheerful face reappeared on my screen, looking not the slightest bit concerned about the 12 armed soldiers who had just boarded his vessel. Yes, Admiral? How can I help you? Where is my boarding party? Oh, they are having a wonderful time. Would you like to speak with them? The screen shifted, and I nearly fell out of my chair. There was Commander Zix, sitting cross-legged on the deck of what appeared to be the human cargo hold, laughing hysterically while trying to juggle 3 small earth fruits. Around him, the rest of my elite security team engaged in various ridiculous activities. Arm wrestling, singing off-key songs, or simply rolling around on the floor, giggling like younglings. What have you done to them? I demanded. Morrison's face returned to the screen. Done? I have not done anything. They volunteered to help me test my cargo. Your cargo? Agricultural supplies, remember? Specifically, a new strain of earth vegetation called cannabis sativa. Amazing plant, really. The colonists are going to love it for recreational purposes. Cannabis sativa? I had never heard of such a thing, but clearly it had some kind of psychoactive effect on coalition species. This was biological warfare disguised as agriculture. You have drugged my personnel. Drugged? Morrison looked genuinely offended. Admiral, that is a very harsh word. I prefer to think of it as cultural exchange. Your people seemed curious about human customs, so I offered them a traditional Earth experience. They accepted quite enthusiastically, I might add. This was a disaster. My boarding party was completely incapacitated, and I had no idea how long the effects would last. Worse, the humans seemed to find the entire situation amusing rather than concerning. Captain Morrison, I demand you immediately provide medical assistance to my personnel and explain the nature of this substance. Medical assistance? Admiral, they are perfectly fine. In fact, I would say they are better than fine. Commander Zix just discovered the meaning of existence through interpretive dance. I looked at the secondary screen showing the cargo hold. Indeed, Zix was performing what could generously be described as dancing, though it looked more like a Rigelian sea slug having a seizure. This is unacceptable. You will reverse the effects immediately. Morrison shrugged. The effects will wear off naturally in a few hours, though I should mention some species experience increased appetite afterward. You might want to stock up on food supplies. A few hours? I could not wait a few hours. The Kepler station was a critical strategic outpost, and I could not afford to have my security forces compromised by human agricultural products. Captain Morrison, I am ordering you to surrender your vessel for quarantine procedures. The human's expression suddenly shifted, and for the first time since our conversation began, I saw something that looked like genuine surprise. Quarantine? Admiral, I think there has been a misunderstanding. This is a perfectly legal cargo shipment, properly documented and approved by both Earth authorities and the Colonial Trade Commission. I am not aware of any regulations prohibiting the transport of recreational botanicals. Recreational botanicals? I sputtered. You have incapacitated an entire military boarding party with your recreational botanicals? Well, yes, but they volunteered. I specifically asked if anyone wanted to participate in a cultural sampling experience, and they all raised their hands, or tentacles, or whatever those appendages are supposed to be. I was beginning to understand why the Galactic Council had such difficulty negotiating with humans. They had an amazing talent for making the unreasonable sound perfectly logical. Captain, regardless of whether my personnel volunteered, the fact remains that your cargo represents a clear security threat. I cannot allow this vessel to proceed to its destination. Morrison's smile returned, but this time it carried a distinctly predatory edge. Admiral, I appreciate your concerns. Truly I do. But I have a legal shipping contract to fulfill, and I intend to honor that contract. If you attempt to interfere with legitimate commerce, the Earth Trade Authority will file a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. A formal complaint? The last thing the Coalition needed was another diplomatic incident with the humans. Their lawyers were almost as dangerous as their military. Perhaps we can reach a compromise, I suggested carefully. You could leave a small sample of your cargo for our scientists to analyze, ensuring it poses no threat to Coalition species. In return, we allow your ship to continue its journey. Morrison appeared to consider this proposition. A sample for scientific analysis. That seems reasonable. But I would need assurances that your people will handle the material responsibly. This particular strain is quite potent. Of course, our xenobiology department follows strict containment protocols. Excellent. I will prepare a sample immediately. Though I should warn you, proper testing requires controlled exposure experiments. You might want to select volunteers who do not have critical duties for the next few days. More volunteers? I was beginning to suspect that Morrison's definition of controlled exposure might differ significantly from standard scientific methodology. That will not be necessary, Captain. We can analyze the substance without direct testing. Suit yourself, Admiral. Though I think your people might enjoy the experience. Commander Zix certainly seems to be having the time of his life. I glanced at the cargo hold monitor. Zix was now attempting to teach the other security officers a traditional human song about a yellow submarine, whatever that was supposed to be. Very well, Captain Morrison. Prepare your sample. But understand this. If your agricultural supplies cause any lasting harm to my personnel, there will be consequences. Morrison's expression became completely serious. Admiral, I give you my word as a human being. No one will be harmed by my cargo. Cannabis has been safely consumed by humans for thousands of years. The only side effects are temporary euphoria, increased appetite, and occasionally profound philosophical insights. Philosophical insights? From a plant? Humans were even stranger than I had thought. Sample, prepared, and ready for transport, Morrison announced. I have also included detailed information about proper dosage and consumption methods, just in case your scientists decide to conduct more comprehensive testing. I had a feeling that Sample would never make it to the xenobiology department. Word would spread quickly about the boarding party's unexpected cultural experience, and curious personnel would inevitably want to conduct their own research. Thank you, Captain. Your cooperation is appreciated. My pleasure, Admiral. And please, give my regards to Commander Zix. He really is a delightful dancer. The transmission ended, and I sat back in my chair, watching my security team continue their impromptu performance art exhibition. This had not gone according to plan. Not even remotely according to plan. Sir, Kor ventured carefully, should we detain the human vessel? I considered the question. Morrison had technically committed no crime. His cargo was apparently legal, his documentation was in order, and my personnel had voluntarily participated in whatever cultural exchange had occurred. Detaining the ship would require extensive paperwork and possibly trigger a diplomatic incident. On the other hand, letting Morrison continue his journey would result in an entire colonial settlement experiencing whatever had happened to my boarding party. The mental image of thousands of colonists simultaneously discovering the meaning of existence through interpretive dance was both terrifying and oddly amusing. No, Lieutenant, release the human vessel, but I want continuous long-range monitoring until it reaches Centauri space. Sir, about our boarding party. They will recover, eventually. In the meantime, seal the cargo hold and post guards outside. And Kor? Yes, sir? Make sure those guards have not volunteered for any cultural exchange programs recently. As the wandering star departed Kepler Station, I found myself wondering if this incident represented humanity's idea of a joke, a business venture, or psychological warfare. With humans, those categories often overlapped in disturbing ways. One thing was certain. The next time a lone human in a cargo ship requested permission to dock, I would be much more specific about the nature of his agricultural supplies. Commander Zix was still singing about submarines when I finally left my post for the day. I had a feeling it was going to be a very long night. 3 days later, my worst fears materialized in the form of an emergency transmission from Centauri Prime. The caller was Director Thane, head of colonial operations, and judging by the frantic twitching of his antennae, something had gone catastrophically wrong. Admiral Vex 9, Thane screeched before I could even offer a greeting. What kind of biological weapon did you allow through our security perimeter? Biological weapon? My stomach sacs clenched with dread. Director, please explain the nature of your emergency. The nature? The nature is complete societal breakdown. That human merchant ship you cleared 3 days ago has turned our entire colony into a philosophical commune. I blinked slowly, processing this information. Could you be more specific? Specific? Fine. Our mining operations have ceased because the workers claim they have achieved spiritual enlightenment and no longer wish to disturb the sacred harmony of rock formations. Our agricultural teams have abandoned their crops to pursue careers in improvisational music. And do not even get me started on what happened to our defense forces. This was definitely Morrison's doing. What exactly did happen to your defense forces? Thane's image flickered as he apparently threw something at his communication console. They have declared themselves conscientious objectors and started a peace movement. Yesterday, they held hands around the colony perimeter and sang songs about universal brotherhood. I felt a migraine developing behind my primary eyes. Director, how much of Captain Morrison's agricultural supplies reached your population. All of it. The fool distributed his entire cargo as free samples to promote interspecies friendship. Within 6 hours, half the colony was experiencing what they described as cosmic awareness. By the second day, productivity had dropped to 0. And now, Thane's voice cracked with despair. Now, they want to rename the colony New Harmony and establish it as a galactic meditation retreat. This was worse than I had imagined. Morrison had not just delivered drugs to the colonists. He had somehow convinced an entire settlement to abandon their purpose and embrace human-style chaos. Director, where is Captain Morrison now? Gone. Vanished. He left orbit yesterday morning, but not before conducting what he called an educational seminar on sustainable living and emotional wellness. The colonists gave him a standing ovation. Of course they did. Humans had an uncanny ability to make their victims grateful for the experience. Did he leave any indication of his next destination? He mentioned something about visiting other agricultural communities to share the benefits of Earth vegetation. Admiral, you have to stop him. If he reaches the Vega settlements or the Rigel mining stations, the entire outer rim will collapse into hippie communes. Hippie communes? I made a mental note to research that term later. Director, what is your current operational status? Operational status? Thane laughed bitterly. We are completely non-operational. The colonists have formed discussion circles to contemplate the meaning of existence. They have started growing their own food using something they call permaculture. And worst of all, they seem genuinely happy about it. Happy colonists were apparently more terrifying to Thane than any military threat. I was beginning to understand why humans were so effective at psychological warfare. I will dispatch a recovery team immediately. In the meantime, try to maintain essential services. Essential services? Admiral, they have redesigned our water purification system based on what they claim are ancient Earth principles of harmony with nature. It actually works better than our original design. They are becoming self-sufficient. Self-sufficient? That was arguably the worst possible outcome from a colonial administrative perspective. Happy, independent colonists were much harder to manage than miserable dependent ones. Director, I will personally investigate this situation, maintain communication protocols, and document all changes to colony operations. Document changes? Admiral, they have invented 17 new musical instruments using mining equipment. How am I supposed to document that? The transmission ended abruptly, leaving me staring at a blank screen and contemplating the scope of Morrison's impact. One human, with no weapons except agricultural products, had successfully neutralized an entire colonial settlement without firing a single shot. Sir? Kor approached my station cautiously. Long-range sensors have detected the wandering star approaching the Arcturus system. Arcturus? That was home to the Coalition's largest military training facility. If Morrison introduced his botanical warfare to our military academy, the consequences would be unthinkable. Plot an intercept course immediately. Maximum speed. Sir, should I alert Fleet Command about the situation? I considered the question carefully. How exactly would I explain to my superiors that a single human had conquered an entire colony using vegetables? The official report would sound like the ravings of a madman. Not yet, Lieutenant. Let us handle this quietly. 6 hours later, our ship dropped out of hyperspace near the Arcturus system, just in time to witness Morrison's vessel entering standard approach vectors for the military academy. I had to admire his timing. The academy was currently hosting its annual interspecies military conference. bringing together young officers from dozens of different worlds. "Hail the wandering star," I ordered. Morrison's cheerful face appeared on screen, looking completely unsurprised by our arrival. "Admiral Vex 9, what a pleasant surprise! Are you here for the military conference?" "Captain Morrison, I am here to discuss your recent activities at Centauri Prime." "Ah, yes. Wonderful people. The Centauri colonists. Very receptive to new ideas. I trust Director Thane was pleased with the agricultural innovations." Agricultural innovations? The man had a talent for creative terminology. "Captain, you have destabilized an entire colonial operation." Morrison looked genuinely puzzled. "Destabilized? Admiral, I helped them achieve sustainable self-sufficiency and improved mental health outcomes. How is that destabilizing? They have abandoned their assigned duties to pursue music careers?" "Well, yes, but only because they discovered hidden talents they never knew they possessed. Creativity is a fundamental aspect of sentient development, you know. I was beginning to understand why diplomatic negotiations with humans required specialized training. They had an ability to reframe any situation in terms that made their actions seem reasonable." "Captain Morrison, I cannot allow you to repeat your Centauri experiment at the military academy." Morrison's expression became serious. "Admiral, I am simply delivering legitimate agricultural supplies to institutions that have requested them. The Academy's commissary specifically ordered recreational botanicals for their cultural exchange program." The Academy had ordered recreational botanicals? I made a mental note to have a very serious conversation with whoever authorized that requisition. "Captain, regardless of official orders, your cargo clearly poses a security risk to military personnel." "Security risk?" Morrison shook his head sadly. "Admiral, with respect, I think you are misunderstanding the nature of my cargo. Cannabis does not make people dangerous. It makes them thoughtful. If anything, it reduces the likelihood of violent conflict. By incapacitating military forces, by encouraging them to question whether violent conflict is really the best solution to interspecies disagreements." This conversation was going in circles, and I was running out of time. Morrison's ship was already being cleared for docking by Academy Traffic Control. "Captain, I am ordering you to divert to a different destination." Morrison's smile returned, but this time it carried a hint of steel. "Admiral, I appreciate your concerns, but I have a legal contract to fulfill. If you attempt to interfere with legitimate commerce, I will be forced to file a formal complaint with the Galactic Trade Commission." The Trade Commission again. Humans really did weaponize bureaucracy more effectively than any other species. "Very well, Captain, but I will be monitoring your activities closely." "I would expect nothing less, Admiral. Feel free to observe the cultural exchange process firsthand. You might find it educational." The transmission ended, and I watched helplessly as the wandering star docked with the Academy station. Within hours, Morrison would be distributing his botanical weapons to the finest young military minds in the Coalition. "Sir, should we contact Academy Security?" Core asked nervously. "No point, Lieutenant. Morrison has legitimate documentation, and interfering would create a diplomatic incident. We will simply have to observe and document the results." Those results became apparent faster than I had anticipated. Within 2 hours of Morrison's arrival, the Academy's emergency communication channels began buzzing with confused reports. "All stations, this is Academy Control. We are experiencing unusual behavioral patterns among conference attendees, requesting immediate medical consultation." I opened a secure channel to Academy Control. Control. This is Admiral Vex 9 aboard the Coalition vessel Vigilant. What is the nature of your medical emergency? Admiral, we are not entirely sure it qualifies as an emergency. The conference delegates appear to be in excellent health, but they have spontaneously organized themselves into what they call peace circles and are discussing alternatives to traditional military doctrine. Peace circles? Morrison was certainly consistent in his methodology. Control? How many delegates have been affected? Affected might be the wrong word, sir. They seem quite enthusiastic about their discussions. Currently, representatives from 12 different species are collaborating on a new framework for conflict resolution based on mutual understanding and shared resources. Mutual understanding and shared resources? These were military officers trained in tactical combat, not social workers. Control, I recommend immediate quarantine procedures. Sir, the delegates have specifically requested permission to extend the conference for an additional week to fully develop their new peacekeeping protocols. They claim to have achieved breakthrough insights into the root causes of interspecies conflict. This was a disaster. Morrison had somehow convinced the future military leaders of the galaxy to abandon warfare in favor of group therapy sessions. Admiral? The voice belonged to Morrison, who had apparently tapped into the communication frequency. Would you like to join us for the closing ceremony? We are planning a celebration of interspecies unity. Captain Morrison, what have you done to those officers? I have done nothing except provide them with a traditional Earth experience that encourages introspection and empathy. The insights they have gained are entirely their own. You have drugged the entire military conference. Admiral, that is such a negative way to describe a positive cultural experience. These young officers have had the opportunity to see beyond the artificial barriers that separate different species. They are discovering that cooperation is more effective than competition. I watched through the Academy's security monitors as dozens of young officers from various species sat in circles, engaged in animated discussions about philosophy, ethics, and the nature of existence. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever witnessed. Captain, this cannot continue. These officers have responsibilities to their home worlds, and they will fulfill those responsibilities more effectively now that they understand the interconnected nature of galactic civilization. Admiral, consider this. How many conflicts arise from simple misunderstandings between species? How many wars could be prevented if military leaders prioritized communication over confrontation? The worst part was that Morrison actually made sense. The galaxy had indeed seen numerous conflicts that might have been avoided through better understanding and communication. But still, Captain, military officers require discipline and focus. Your botanical interventions compromise their judgment. Do they? Admiral, have you actually spoken with any of the conference delegates? Have you asked them about their experiences? I had not. I had been too busy assuming the worst possible outcomes. I would be happy to arrange a conversation, Morrison continued. Why not speak directly with Lieutenant Commander Sarah Martinez from the Earth Defense Force? She has been working with a Rigelian tactical specialist to develop new approaches to crisis de-escalation. Sarah Martinez? That name was familiar. She was one of Earth's most promising young officers, destined for high command positions. If Morrison had compromised her development— Very well, Captain. Arrange the conversation. Minutes later, Lieutenant Commander Martinez appeared on my view screen. She looked alert, focused, and completely lucid, which was somehow more disturbing than if she had been giggling like Commander Zix. Admiral Vex 9, it is an honor to speak with you. Martinez said professionally. Captain Morrison mentioned you had concerns about our conference activities. Lieutenant Commander, what exactly have you been doing for the past several hours? Participating in the most productive military strategy session of my career, sir. Working with officers from different species has provided incredible insights into how cultural perspectives shape tactical thinking. For instance, Rigelian commanders prioritize patience and long-term planning, while Andromedan officers excel at rapid adaptation. By combining these approaches, we have developed hybrid strategies that are far more effective than traditional single-species doctrines. That sounded actually quite reasonable. And this collaborative approach was inspired by Captain Morrison's agricultural supplies. Martinez smiled. The botanical experience certainly helped facilitate open communication, but the strategic insights are based on solid military science. Admiral, we are not abandoning our duties. We are finding better ways to fulfill them. Lieutenant Commander, your superiors expect you to return with conventional military training, not philosophical revelations. Sir, with respect, conventional military training has not prevented the 17 major conflicts we have seen in the past decade. Perhaps it is time to try something new. I found myself without a ready counter-argument. The galaxy had indeed experienced significant instability recently, despite having the most advanced military forces in known history. Admiral, Morrison's voice interrupted my thoughts. The delegates have prepared a formal presentation on their new peacekeeping framework. Would you like to review their proposals? A formal presentation? These officers had developed an entirely new military doctrine in the span of a few hours. Very well, Captain. I will review their proposals. What followed was the most comprehensive analysis of interspecies conflict resolution I had ever encountered. The young officers had identified patterns of misunderstanding that frequently led to military confrontations, developed communication protocols for preventing escalation, and designed joint training programs that would allow different species to work together more effectively. It was brilliant, it was practical, and it had been inspired by vegetables. Captain Morrison, I said finally, I owe you an apology. Morrison looked surprised. An apology? For what, Admiral? I assumed your activities were deliberately destabilizing coalition operations. I failed to consider that your methods might actually improve them. Admiral, I never intended to destabilize anything. I simply believe that different perspectives and experiences can help sentient beings find better solutions to common problems. Whether those problems involve farming, military strategy, or just getting along with neighbors. I looked at the data from both Centauri Prime and the military academy. In both cases, Morrison's interventions had indeed produced better outcomes, more efficient operations, improved morale, and innovative approaches to long-standing challenges. Captain, I have one final question. Why do you do this? What do you gain from these cultural exchanges? Morrison's expression became thoughtful. Admiral, humans learned long ago that the universe is a very big, very dangerous place. We survive by building connections with other species, by finding common ground despite our differences. If sharing a little Earth agriculture helps other beings discover their own potential for cooperation and creativity, then everybody benefits. And the fact that your agricultural products generate considerable profit is merely coincidental. Morrison laughed. Admiral, I am still a merchant, but I prefer to sell products that make people happier rather than ones that make them more miserable. It is better for business in the long run. As the wandering star departed the Arcturus system, I found myself reconsidering everything I thought I knew about humans and their approach to galactic relations. Morrison had achieved more strategic success with a cargo hold full of plants than most military commanders accomplished with entire fleets. 3 months later, I received reports that the new peacekeeping protocols developed at the military conference had successfully prevented 2 potential conflicts in the outer systems. The Centauri colony had become a model of sustainable development that other settlements were eager to emulate. And Commander Zix had started a successful career as an interpretive dance instructor. Sometimes, I reflected, the most effective weapons are the ones that convince your enemies to stop being enemies altogether. Humans, I had learned, do not win by being stronger, or faster, or more violent than their opponents. They win by being more creative, more adaptable, and more willing to find solutions that benefit everyone involved. No armor, no guns, just a human, and his inexplicable ability to turn conflicts into opportunities for cooperation. That, I realized, was exactly why they were so terrifying. And so effective.